Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 10-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot using FantasyPro's Draft Wizard. The roster positions for today's mock draft are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots, kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. We're going to be drafting up against the expert consensus rankings as well as the composite ADP from ESPN, NFL, RT Sports, and Sleeper. But before we can get into this mock draft, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel, and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this 10-team PPR mock draft from the 10th overall spot. So the draft begins here with Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, and Stephon Diggs. So a very wide receiver heavy first round. I think based upon how the roster construction is here with 2 wide receivers and 2 flexes, it makes a lot of sense for more wide receivers to go early, because a lot of drafters would elect to go for a more wide receiver heavy draft strategy. 2 wide receivers in the regular receiver spot and then 2 wide receivers in the flex spot. I definitely don't think it's crazy to draft a running back in the first round in this type of a league. And same thing goes with if you wanted to go double hero running back, right? Draft 2 running backs with your first 2 picks. I don't think that's crazy either. I talk about this a lot in the 10-team draft strategy videos, these 10-team mock drafts, is that you want to go ahead and try to get Travis Kelce in these 10-team leagues, because the positional advantage at tight end is significantly more in a 10 or 8-team league compared to a 12-team league, because every single team is basically loaded to the fucking gills with talent, so you need to get different elsewhere, get that upside, and that's with the tight end position. But at the 10 hole, it is damn near impossible that you're going to get Travis Kelce, especially with how high people are willing to draft Travis Kelce this season. So looking at the board, best receivers available: Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams. Running backs: Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Bijan, Nick Chubb. For me, this is going to be a no-brainer. I like the running backs available more than the wide receivers. So I am going to go first with Bijan Robinson, running back of the Atlanta Falcons. I fully expect Bijan Robinson to be the workhorse running back on this team. This is going to be one of the most run-heavy offenses in the NFL, and I'm shocked that FantasyPros has him ranked as the RB5. He is currently my RB number 3, and there is reason to potentially even bump him past Austin Eckler as my RB number 2. So we're back up on the clock, and based upon how this draft has fallen, normally we like to go running back and wide receiver with our first 2 picks. So one of the rounds, wide receiver, one of them running backs, but this time, based on how the draft has fallen to us, I am going to go double running back. Now, some people might say, Nick, it's impossible for Saquon Barkley to fall this far. Well, that's okay. If Saquon doesn't fall this far, then I'm going Nick Chubb or Tony Pollard. I love this spot for Saquon Barkley. A lot of people have commented how I'm a little bit too low on Saquon Barkley. Ultimately, I do have Barkley ranked below Nick Chubb, but I do think Saquon Barkley could outscore Nick Chubb. There's a Giants offense that I'm incredibly excited about this year with Brian Daboll, second year. They got a lot more weapons at the wide receiver core, which is going to kind of lessen the box that Saquon Barkley is going to have to kind of face game in and game out, right? Because in the past, they could just load the box up like a fucking buffet for Saquon Barkley, but now they can't really do that with the addition of Darren Waller and the fact that they do have some wide receivers with breakout potential. After Saquon Barkley, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Devontae Adams, Jonathan Taylor, Tony Pollard, Garrett Wilson, Derrick Henry, Jalen Waddle, Josh Jacobs, Pat Mahomes, Devontae Smith, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Chris Olave, Mark Andrews, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Najee Harris. Definitely would have been a wet dream to get Mark Andrews at the end of the 3rd round, but again, in these leagues, these 10-team leagues where the tight end positional advantage is a lot more important, I would consider taking Mark Andrews a lot higher in the 3rd round. I also think the same positional advantage appeals to the quarterback position here, but the problem is we don't get Mahomes, Allen, or Hurts, so I don't want to reach up here and take Lamar or Justin Fields, even though I like them in the 3rd or 4th round of a 10-team draft. Now, maybe you might want to. That's fine. But for me, it's a little too high of a price, right? I don't know how I could finish this draft and stomach the fact that Jalen Hurts went a couple of picks before I select Lamar Jackson, right? To me, that just is not worth it. So now we have our 1-2 punch at running back, potentially the RB1 and RB2 at the end of the season. So now we can push away from the running back position and dive deep Michael Phelps style here into the wide receiver position. Best receivers available: Keenan Allen, T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, and Calvin Ridley. We are going to go with T. Higgins on this team. T. Higgins is one of the safest bets in all of fantasy football. We know he's probably going to finish every single week somewhere from wide receiver 8, I would say, to wide receiver 16. He's never really going to screw your team over. The one negative about him is if Ja'Marr Chase is healthy all season, he doesn't really have the upside to finish as like a top 5 wide receiver, but that's okay because we get back-to-back picks, Michael Jordan 96, 97 here, and we are going to go with another wide receiver. Calvin Ridley, Keenan Allen, or Amari Cooper would be my choices. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you would know I'm very anti-DK Metcalf. Now, don't get that mistaken. Don't get that all shook up, like that Elvis song about DK Metcalf, right? I think he's a good player. The situation scares the daylights out of me, so we are going to go with Keenan Allen in this spot. I get he's getting a little bit up there in age. People will say Keenan Allen's injury prone, but if you actually look at his career as a whole, he isn't very injury prone. He just missed some games last year. Prior to that, I believe every single season for the last 5, he played over 14 games. So I think the argument against Keenan Allen is a little bit fugazi. Now, maybe you're a little bit more nervous because he's getting older. I think that argument's a lot more fair compared to the argument that he's just injury prone, because when you look at the statistics, that's just a flat out lie. After Keenan Allen, Travis Etienne, Joe Mixon, Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, Breece Hall, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, Debo Samuel, Kenneth Walker III, Amari Cooper, TJ Hawkinson, J.K. Dobbins, Damian Pierce, Wiki, DJ Moore, Lamar Jackson, DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Watson, and Jerry Jeudy. Very disappointed that D-Hop and Watson and Jeudy, all these guys went right before I get to pick, because those are some of my favorite wide receivers. I am kind of off of Chris Godwin in the 5th round if I'm just keeping it 100. I think Chris Godwin is a great player. It's just the Baker thing kind of scares me. I'd rather just wait a couple of rounds. In a lot of leagues, you can get Mike Evans multiple rounds later, and I'd rather bite the bullet on him because it's not in the 5th round, right? Sometimes in the 7th or the 8th round. I talked about this in the draft strategy video from yesterday, but the earlier on you are in fantasy drafts, you want to be a little bit safer. The deeper in, you want to kind of rip the band-aid off, get a little bit risky. I think Chris Godwin is a relatively risky pick. Now, he's going to get a lot of targets. The questions, will the touchdowns come with Baker under center? I don't know. I guess Mike Evans is still risky, but he just goes a lot later. So we are going to go with best wide receiver available here, Drake London. Terry McLaurin currently dealing with an injury. Now, I don't think he's a guy you need to fully fade. There is still optimism for week 1, but we all know those turf toe injuries are real pesky bitches, right? The turf toe will catch up to you, could do you dirty. He might miss multiple games to start off the season. Now, again, I'm not a doctor, but that is something that I worry about. So Terry McLaurin's kind of a fade, not a full fade, because some people will just get so nervous that it'll fall too far. But for me, in the 5th round of a 10-team league, not really the kind of guy I'm looking to attack here. Again, he's also more of one of a safer kind of players where I don't think he really has the ceiling to be like a top 5 wide receiver, where you can make the argument that if something pops well for Chris Godwin, right, if Baker Mayfield goes back to his collegiate days, right, he's grabbing his nuts on the sideline like up against Kansas, maybe Chris Godwin goes crazy. I don't know if Terry McLaurin kind of has that same upside, even though I love Terry McLaurin. Drizzy, Drake London, Deontay Johnson, Tyler Lockett would be my picks here. We're going to go with Drake London this time, but we are actually not going to. I'm going to kind of Dikembe no myself here, because we already have Bijan Robinson. There is a chance that the Atlanta Falcons offense looks pretty good. There's also a chance that the Atlanta Falcons offense is much of the same, and you don't really want to be watching them a lot on Sunday. Bijan could still go balls deep into defenses, but do I really want to have 2 players on Atlanta that are going to be in my starting lineup at all times? Now, it's a little different if Drake London was going later, right? And he was a guy that was a bench piece for us, and some games we could throw him in the lineup, then it's perfectly fine. But you don't really want to have two guys in your lineup at the exact same time that are on bad teams. Now, it's different. If you have two guys on the Bengals, then while some people might not like that, I don't mind it, right? But on the Atlanta Falcons, that pesky team, I definitely don't want to do that. So we are going to go with Deontay Johnson this time. I am probably the biggest Deontay Johnson advocate to ever grace Earth. I genuinely believe Deontay Johnson could be a top 10, top 8, top 5 receiver this year. The stats don't lie. This is a guy that is going to see one of the highest amount of targets in the NFL. He only scored 0 touchdowns last year. You have to think things revert back to the past where he was scoring touchdowns, so I'm a huge fan of him. And then we are going to go quarterback. Now, normally our pick at this range, if a quarterback falls, is 100% of the time going to be Justin Fields. I love Justin Fields this year. I have him ranked ahead of Joe Burrow, but this is another point that I talk about a ton. If you are in a 10-team league at this pick and all the time in the 6th round, you're taking Justin Fields. If Justin Fields gets fucking whacked, Sopranos style, right, then you are essentially kind of fucked. Now, can you still win your league? 100%. But that hurts when your quarterback of every single league is the same guy not playing, right? So we're going to diversify here with Joe Burrow. He still has the injury tag on him. It seems like everything's been really positive for him, like he's going to be good to go for week 1. So I'm going to go with Joe Shiesty here, quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, obviously, there are going to be some detractors that I've had to argue with in the comment section about how quarterback stacking with the wide receiver isn't very important. I don't think it's very important either. Again, Joe Burrow fell to us into a range where now I have Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. If T. Higgins has a huge game, if T. Higgins is hanging his dick on the shoulder of the defense, he's making the defense hold his fucking pocket like he's in prison, then Joe Burrow probably had a humongous game, right? You get those double points. Sure, there is some downsides to it, right? There is the fact that if Joe Burrow has a shitty game, so probably does T. Higgins, right? But I believe that the upside, the pros greatly outweigh the cons. If you guys have enjoyed thus far, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button down below. So we're back up on the clock here after Joe Shiesty, Drizzy Drake London, Justin Herbert, the pervert, Terry McLaurin, Miles Sanders, Mike Williams, Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Justin Fields, Rashad White, Trevor Lawrence, Javonte Williams, Tyler Lockett in my pocket skirt, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman Jr., James Conner, and Darren Waller. Would have loved to get Waller in the 7th round, man. I am comfortable taking him much higher than that. I really love Darren Waller this season. A lot of the tight ends are falling. This is something that I've noticed a lot. A lot of drafts, or it's probably like 50-50. Some drafts, the tight ends are coming off the board at an insane rate, like some premature ejaculation rate. And then in some drafts, people are kind of waiting around, chilling out, just like this one, right? We saw Kelsey in the 1st, Andrews in the 3rd, Hawkinson going a little late in the 5th, and then Waller in the 7th. So in this kind of a room, you definitely want to take advantage of that. Get a guy like George Kittle. Now, I don't even like George Kittle that much. The fact that he was already banged up does kind of scare me. He didn't participate in drills Monday. I'm not too worried about that. Again, it is kind of scary. I have been someone that has been fading George Kittle immensely. I think if this was a real draft, I would take him here, but I think the odds of this actually happening is kind of slim to none. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to take the easy way out here. We're going to continue to build out our squad. Looking at the running backs, Alexander Madison, Cam Akers, James Cook, David Montgomery, quarterbacks, Watson, Prescott, Tua. The good thing about drafting one of the earlier quarterbacks is while I like these late round quarterbacks, guys, you're kind of picking, like, there's scary parts, right? Deshaun, there's the fact that maybe he just sucks, right? I don't think so, but maybe he just does. Dak, turn of the ball over. Dak throws a million interceptions. Maybe he is just not as good as he used to be. Tua, the injuries. Daniel Jones, the fact that he's Daniel Jones. Now, I like Daniel Jones a lot, but right, there's downsides with these guys. Kirk Cousins, any game past 1 o'clock, the guy's going to fold like one of those tables that the drunk Bills fans set on fire and jump through. So there's some scary things. Spooky, scary skeletons as you get deeper and deeper into the draft at quarterback. So getting one of those early round guys does really feel a lot safer. Now, could Watson outscore Joe Shiesty? Yeah, he could. I'm not saying that. So looking at the receivers, Hollywood Brown, Mike Evans, Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, Brandon Cooks, Jordan Addison Ray. We are going to snag Hollywood Brown onto this team. I think a lot of people are really scared to draft Hollywood Brown. Now I get it 100%, right? The Arizona Cardinals aren't going to be all that great of a team, but if we see Kyler return, say week 6, I think we're going to see a decent season out of Hollywood Brown. He is clearly the wide receiver 1 there with D-Hop gone. Now, it does say that we got him at a value, but I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think it's really all that insane in a 10-team league for him to go with the 7-10 because the Carolina Panthers, not the Carolina Panthers, I've done this in the past, right, where I call the Carolina Panthers the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals have one of the biggest stinks on them. It's like when a kid shits themselves during a fight. Now, if anyone has not seen that video, watch that on Twitter. This guy in the school, apparently, like, the kid sat in his at his lunch seat. You know, he wasn't fucking with that, so he goes to sock the kid from behind, right? So this is like one of those where you definitely shouldn't do this, right? It's like a bitch slap, basically. So he punches him, and then the other kid who stole his seat cracks him. The kid gets back up, cracks him. And then, like, this girl in the background's like, oh my God, I think he shit himself. If you haven't seen this video now, if you don't like violence or whatever, don't watch the video. Your discretion is advised. But let me tell you, that was one of the funniest videos. If you get literally the shit beat out of you, you have to transfer schools. If a turd slides out the cheeks like that, hell no, I'm not showing back to school anywhere near then. I would be very afraid to do that because now you're the kid who shit himself for life. And it's in high school, right? It wasn't like it was like in elementary school and it is what it is. Little Billy had a problem in his pants, right? Now he was like probably a 17-year-old. Got clocked. If you haven't seen this video is really popular on Twitter, so I assume a lot of people have seen it, but not everyone uses Twitter. And if you haven't seen the video, hopefully my description, I'm like George R.R. Martin out here describing what happened. So we haven't made a pick yet. We have actually. We went with Hollywood Brown. That whole story, I envisioned the story in my mind. Like I watched the video play through in my head, so I kind of got a bit of a concussion there, lost my knowledge right there of what happened. So I am starting to worry about the fact that Jonathan Taylor might be a Viking. Jonathan Taylor might be a Philadelphia Eagle. If Jonathan Taylor is on the Eagles, that would probably be the funniest fucking thing ever. Swift, Penny, JT, baby. That would be hilarious. I hope he's a Dolphin, though, as a Dolphins fan. But I don't know. You know, Greer doesn't really want to pay up for a running back. Kind of worried about the fact that Alexander Mattison might get cucked by Monsieur Jonathan Taylor. Cam Akers could also get cucked, but I don't know why he would want to go to the Rams. Now, the team put a clause in there. Hey, buddy, you got to figure out a trade by next week on Tuesday, I believe. So we'll see what happens before then. I don't think it's going to happen for the next couple of days, but when it does happen, I'll make a YouTube short and probably a YouTube video if it ends up being somewhere where it's really going to shake things up. I'm all shook up. Oh, I brought that up earlier too. So we're going running back here. We're going to go with the safest bet here. We're going to go with Cam Akers of the LA Rams. I like Cam Akers a decent amount this season. I really think the LA Rams might be a shitstorm defensively. But I think Cam Akers has decent pass catching prowess, right? The other running backs behind him just aren't great. And he looked so hot, pause, at the end of last season. NBA Jam style. The boy was on fire. So we have Bijan, Saquon, and Cam Akers. So we don't really have to draft. We're going to draft one more running back, but we don't really need to delve into the running backs in this range. We can just keep going. Hammer time on the wide receiver position. So after Cam Akers, Danny Dimes, DeAndre Swift, Alexander Mattison, Mike Evans, Isaiah Pacheco, George Pickens, Jordan Addison Ray, James Cook, David Montgomery, Treylon Burks, Niners defense, John Doxson, Jackson Smith in the Jigba, Kittle, Brown, then Dylan. I don't know why the fuck I thought that said A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown goes much higher in the draft. Kittle, A.J. Dillon, Antonio Gibson, Cortland Sutton, and Zach Charbonnet. Kittle in the 9th round is just insane. I don't even like him. That's amazing value. JSN getting hurt, that's going to make him plummet, so his ADP has fallen, which obviously makes sense, right? Because he had surgery. Now, it wasn't any crazy surgery, right? He didn't have to fucking get his leg amputated or some shit. Didn't have to get, like, the Alex Smith surgery. Crazy that Alex Smith even played again after that. Shout out to Alex Smith. But, yeah, he should be fine a couple weeks in the season. But that could delay what could have been maybe a tremendous, the greatest rookie season ever. So we're back up on the clock here. We are going to go wide receiver. We still don't have a tight end. Pitts is still available, which is very nice. But again, it does really feel disgusting to have 2 players on the Falcons in your starting lineup. And also, I don't think I really think it's like basically impossible for Pitts or Goddard to be here. It's definitely possible for Ingram or Freiermuth to be here. So we're just going to wait until the very end to go tight end. We're going to go receiver, like I said, Cooks, Davis, Juju, Michael Thomas, Elijah Moore. We're hunting for upside, right? The deeper and deeper you get into the draft, the more upside you want. I think the highest upside picks here are Gabe Davis or Michael Thomas. I think Gabe Davis last year, we pumped him up far too much, right? We gave him a nice fluff up last season, took him all the way to the tippy top of the mountain, and he plummeted down. He fell to the deep depths of the earth. It was bad. It was really, really bad. He finished as, what, the wide receiver 34? Now, again, not like a huge bust, but where we drafted him, right? That was some malarkey that he finished that low. I think he could have been in for like a post-hype guy, right? Where we talk about him as a huge breakout in 2022, and then everyone is scared shitless to draft him, and then bada bing, bada boom, step inside the room in 2023, he smashes. Also, Josh Allen's injury could have played a factor into that. I'm not saying it did, but it could have, right? The fact that Josh Allen was so banged up for a lot of the season did kind of hurt, especially since it was his arm. So we're back up on the clock here. We're going double risky receivers. We're going with Michael Thomas, right? Michael Thomas is a guy that might end up being a league winner, or he might end up off our team in 2 weeks because he gets hurt fucking... I don't even know. I make a lot of these jokes, right? I hope that Michael Thomas doesn't get hurt, right? But this is a guy that gets hurt. He stubs his toe on his fucking couch when he goes to sit down, and he's just out for the season, right? But there is a chance that if he stays healthy, he really could have huge upside. And Derek Carr was giving him the gawk 9,000 the other day, so maybe, just maybe, if Michael Thomas can stay healthy with Derek Carr, he can get back the slant man as a top 12 receiver. After Michael Thomas, Samaje P. Ryan, Brandon Cooks, Dickie Dak Prescott, Khalil Herbert, the Eagles, Juju, Sky Moore, Odell, Rashad Master Bateman, Kadarius Toney, Zay Flowers, Jacoby Myers, Elijah Moore, Jamal with 2 A's, Williams, Buffalo Bills, Brian Robinson, Ezekiel Elliott, and Devin 2 Chains back up on the clock here. Again, if this is a real draft, I'm taking Pitts or Goddard without even a thought in my mind. Would have taken them probably 2 rounds ago. But again, I don't think this would actually happen, right? Looking at the draft board right now, only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams have tight ends, right? Unless you're playing in a league where people just for some reason have this vendetta against the tight end position, this is damn near fucking impossible. And I think taking one of them here would kind of almost ruin the video. So if you want to instead be like, oh, Nick took Pat Freiermuth at this pick, that's fine as well. We'll probably end up with a not-so-hot tight end because of this, but it is what it is, right? I still think for the sake of the content, it would be crazy to have Goddard, right? Because then this team would be just bananas, and it's very, very likely not going to happen. So we do need another running back, right? We can't just draft 3. We are going to go with one more here. Rashad Penny, Damian Harris. We haven't drafted Rashad Penny like once here. Again, there is the talk about Jonathan Taylor. Seems like he looked really good in that preseason action. Rashad Penny is actually one of the most efficient running backs I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. The problem is, this is another guy just can't stay healthy worth anything. He goes to take a shower, instead of dropping the soap. Actually, he drops the soap and fucking does a 360 in the shower, falls and hurts himself, right? Rashad Penny, it sucks. Now, again, I don't like to make fun of injuries, so I hope Rashad Penny stays healthy, because if he does, like, I think he could get a lot of touches on this team. We drafted Shiesty earlier, so we're not going with another quarterback. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wide receivers. So again, this is kind of a league where it's basically calling our name. Fernando, is that the words of the Lady Gaga song? Just calling our name, or is it Alejandro? One or the other. Just to keep drafting receivers, because you can start 4 at a time. We are, again, hunting for that upside. Could go QJ, but we already have Keenan Allen. But again, this is a better offense. And if something happened to Mike Williams, you'd probably want to start QJ and Keenan Allen in the lineup. Quentin Johnston, obviously a highly talked about player coming into the NFL draft. They talk about his inconsistency during camp, blah, 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 blah. Guess what? I don't really give a shit about that, because he's not a guy that I need to have in my lineup week 1. This is a guy that could be a league winner at the end of the season. Put my team on his metaphorical back. His actual, not a metaphorical back, his real back. And Mike Williams, again, one of those guys where it's not insane to say he's going to get hurt, right? So after Damn, we saw a lot of tight ends come off the board. Quentin Johnston, Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts, Deshaun Watson, Jerick McKinnon, Jeff Wilson, Romeo Doubs, Rondale Moore, Devin Singletary, Darnell, here comes the Mooney, Pat Fryermuth, DJ Chark, baby Chark, who just got hurt, David Njoku, Evan Ingram, Juwan Johnson, Elijah Mitchell, Alan Lazard, Tyler Higbee, and Damian Harris. Going to close this one out here with a tight end. Definitely need a tight end. We're to go with Schultz. I like Schultz a ton this year. I think he could end up being the number 2 target on this Texans offense. And typically younger quarterbacks like to focus in on the tight end a little bit more, that safety net. And then we are going to go with one more running back here to close things out. We are going to go with Raheem Mostert, who, if something, if they don't bring in Jonathan Taylor, I think Raheem Mostert week 1 up against the Chargers will be the starting running back. We'll see how that rotation moves with A-Chain healthy. If JT is there, obviously that's just a garbage pick because JT is going to be the running back 1. And while the Mike McDaniel system on paper is a running back by committee, if they fucking trade for Jonathan Taylor, it is going to be Jonathan Taylor out there a gazillion times a game. And as a Dolphins fan, that will get me a little chubbed up underneath my desk. So after Raheem Mostert, Geno Smith, Jalen Warren, Tyler Algier, Adam Thielen, who could just, with all these wide receivers in Carolina just going down to injury, he might fuck around and end up being really good. Kendre Miller, Tank Bigsby, Kenneth Gainwell, Roshan Johnson, Donta Foreman, Dallas Cowboys, Cole Kmet, Tyler Bass, Justin Tucker, the fucker, Jameson Williams, Deuce Vaughn, a.k.a. the little guy, Evan McPherson, Harrison Butker, and Daniel Carlson. If you hadn't seen another video to watch, you didn't see CD Lamb's Instagram story, you can probably find it on YouTube. He posted his video where he's walking into the locker room and where the garbage can is, I guess just in the middle of the locker room. And no, I'm not talking about Dak Prescott's locker. It's so fucking funny. But he walks in and there's a little cleat and a little glove there. Obviously it was someone's kid who was there, right, at training camp messing with their dad, you would assume, right, on the team, or some kid that was there, right, not a grandson, right, that's not possible, but you get what I mean. Not fucking Tom Brady isn't out there, but someone related probably brings their kid there, and it's funny, and he's like, hey, look, Deuce Vaughn left his fucking cleat here or whatever. It was funny. Maybe you had to see it. Maybe it wasn't as funny when I described it. A lot of jokes where I talk about a video or something, you kind of have to see the video to get it, but I thought it was really funny. So we're up on the clock here. We are going to go with kicker first, and we're going with my guy, my old bitch lame, but my young ho coup. And then we're going with defense. Now, the best defense available is the Jets, technically, but the Jets play the Bills week 1. The Patriots play the Eagles. The Baltimore Ravens play the Houston Texans. You want to draft a defense playing a shitty offense week 1. Doesn't matter if the defense you think sucks rotten asshole, doesn't matter at all. You want to draft a defense playing a not so hot opponent week 1, and then after that you can keep switching them in and out. So we get a C+. This team gets a C+. Okay, now again, probably should have taken a tight end at some point earlier than Dalton Schultz, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. So our team, Joe Shiesty, running backs are Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, receivers are T. Higgins and Keenan Allen, tight end Dalton Schultz, flexes are Deontay Johnson and Hollywood Brown, defense is the Ravens, Young Ho Koo is our kicker, bench is comprised of Cam Akers, Gabe Davis, Michael Thomas, Rashad Penny, Quentin Johnston, and Raheem Mostert, a very high upside team. The only guy in our starting lineup that doesn't have a lot of upside is probably T. Higgins, right? I don't really think we're going to see T. Higgins blasting off into being a top 3 receiver any week, but the rest of the squad, very high upside. I even think that Dalton Schultz is a pretty high upside pick. So let me know down below in the comment section what you guys thought about the team. Any questions, leave them down below. Click on one of the videos on your screen right now to watch a new one, or click on the subscribe button over there or down below. Love you guys all so much. Make sure to leave a like on the way out. Hope you guys all have a great day. And as always, video later. Good.